Some of you may have seen the video where we had the square body exhaust done at a local shop, and it turned out really nice. But he charged 450 bucks, which out of fairness included those MagnaFlow mufflers, which retail for about 100 bucks a piece, so $250. But he didn't have Mandrel bent tubing. He just used a regular tubing bender, and it kind of drove me crazy the way it crimps that exhaust pipe every time he made a bend. So this time we're going to do it ourselves. This is a kit from Speedway Motors that I ordered, and it comes with 4 straight sticks that are about 4 foot, 5 foot long. It came with the 4 90s, 3 45s, 3 U-bends, and then it also had included this H-pipe kit, which it has these stretched on all 3 connection points, so you can do slip fit either with a straight across pipe or this slight bend to maybe go under the drive shaft. Also in that kit, for a very reasonable price, it was under $300, it came with these 2 Flowmaster style mufflers, which I don't know what happened if Flowmaster's patent went out, because now it seems like everyone's making that style muffler. And I kind of like the nostalgia of the Flowmasters. The last time we used those MagnaFlows, Flowmaster also makes a new Flow FX muffler, which is really similar to that. It's sort of a straight through design that were really free flowing and sounded really cool at wide open throttle, and they were quiet at idle. I did like them, but I'm gonna do something different this time. Also ordered these 2 hangers because I think at the length of this exhaust system from the collectors to where 2 hangers are, it'll probably hold all the weight. I've had this miter saw for like 10 years now or longer, and I've used it once on a wood flooring project. I will point out, this is not the right tool for the job due to the RPMs that it spins, I think. But for some reason, all the major big box stores sell these discs right by where those miter saws are. So step 1, I'm gonna get it up on the jack stands, and then we'll start measuring and cutting and getting into this. Now, to do a test fire on this engine, which went rather successfully, we welded some short legs onto the bottom of these collectors just to sort of deflect the exhaust somewhere and have a little length after the oxygen sensor, because it can't be exposed that closely to the exit of the exhaust. Anyway, this one actually is probably going to work. We'll be able to just cut a section off of this and then fully weld it around the collector and utilize it. I wasn't sure until we got under here how much clearance we have like above this transmission cross member. So we could run exhaust pipe here above it. This is going to be more doable to come down straighter, longer. So that's kind of the trade-off. Either we have a ton of cuts and welds in that exhaust to go up and over and then back down again, and then back level again. I like the look and I like the performance aspect of having a straighter section that has a slower transition from the bottom of the header, more so than a bunch of curvature. Not that I'm just trying to be lazy. I just feel like not only will it look better, it'll perform better. So we come down from the header, then we have that little slight exposure, which actually is not quite as low on the exhaust as that transmission cross member is. So we really haven't lost much as far as ground clearance goes. Now I need to try to match it on the passenger side so we can start on the H-pipe assembly. So I fully welded both of those primary runs and hung them under the truck, then marked where they needed to be cut for this H-pipe assembly, and I went ahead and cut them. I also went ahead and cut the transition or the cross pipe piece that'll make the H-pipe. So now it's time to bolt them back in, mock all of this stuff up, and tack it, and then take it back down and then burn in the H-pipe. Now the exhaust so far is hung from the manifolds, and then I slid these last two tubes, the straight tubes that we have, into the back of the H-pipe assembly. Now we just need to determine where we're going to cut those off so we can hang our mufflers at the appropriate distance. And I kind of like something in here because I would honestly just like to put some dumps on the back, and the further back you put your mufflers, the quieter your exhaust is going to be. Also need to keep in mind where I'm going to put the hangers, so we may need to move further forward so those hanger straps can wrap around this muffler, and then we'll have room to put the turn downs or maybe some turn down and outs. I don't know. Before we weld these muffler sections in, I want to make sure that these sit level for no other reason except that I want them to sit level. And make sure we've elevated this pipe where it sort of follows the same line parallel with the lower frame, or the lower edge of the frame. We'll tack those in both sides, then we'll build our dumps and tack them in, and we'll take the whole assembly down and finish weld this back half. So a pro tip on welding pipe like this, if you don't have a good place to ground it, like on the tip of our mufflers, you can use a piece of heavy gauge wire, like this was from a amplifier wiring kit I think that I never used. And I just stripped the insulation off of it and wrapped it around the pipe and then clamped my ground to it. It gives you basically 360 degrees of contact on your ground. Anyway, imagine that, me giving pro tips for welding of all things. These are the materials we have left to do our dumps. And if we use one of these 45s or 90s, we'll consume an entire piece to achieve what we're after. But if we use one of these 180s, I can get away with just cutting these down to the length I need and then cutting 2 times here. And that's going to give us both pieces that we need. Both sides with one piece of material. Guess we'll just pick something we like and go with it, and then match it on the other side. Alright, these should be fully cured from painting them yesterday, so we can get them hung now. By the way, we used this VHT flame proof. It's 1300 to 2000 degree, and it has a ceramic in it. All of those VHT colors in that flame proof stuff is satin finish. It looks fine to me. I do kind of like how shiny those pipes were under there, which we could have used stainless and they would have looked pretty cool, but it rusts at the welds regardless if it's stainless or not, so you still have that issue. But we shouldn't have issues with this rusting because they're painted, and there's a treatment process to cure the paint, but since we can't run this engine very long with no radiator or coolant in it, we'll get what we get. think I'm okay with that mounting. It looks pretty clean as long as those hold. We'll probably have to keep an eye on them. I'm pretty happy with the way it turns out. It hangs just maybe 1.5 inches or so below the frame when you look at it level. And then we've got these turned out just a little bit instead of straight down, so that should help some of the sound come out. And we'll see how it works when the bed's on it, but there will be no issues with interference, clearance, or etc. if we have to do any kind of like alignment. It's not up against any of the hardware. And there's almost no way to fish it through that independent rear suspension, and we certainly didn't want to go under it. All that's left is to fire it up and see how this baby sounds. Unfortunately, in this garage, that Venturi noise seems like it's as loud as the exhaust is, which the exhaust is certainly not very loud. Probably get a little louder at wide open throttle, but for street driving, I think it'll be pretty comfortable inside. I appreciate you guys watching if you made it this far, and we'll see you next week.